Hello, and welcome to a podcast. I'm here at Lower LaSalle Lake and on my way to Solway. So I stopped and thought I would make my podcast with a new surrounding. It's a beautiful day, sort of the first day of spring, incredible. Um, Warm, the snow is melting, the ice is still pretty good on the lakes, but it's a beautiful day for a walk. And an odd surrounding for me to tell you the synopsis of another story that I won't write. This one is short, um, and I hope you'll like it. But um, I'm enjoying putting these stories, recording them somehow, and hopefully they're good for a few minutes of listening and a bit of enjoyment. Maybe someday somebody will take one of these stories and develop it and use it. I think that it's kind of interesting that the last three stories are certainly not all. So part of it's the timing of when I started to do this. And with the timing and starting to do it right now, um, I'm certain topics are more relevant. But I think one of the reasons why these three stories all have had to do with AI is because I don't know if ever before um, that I can think of that we have had something that is so. I've never been front row to letting a genie out of a bottle before. And I think that is what we are doing. Um, it feels like those who are paying attention are watching, and it's like we're opening Pandora's box. You guys know that, don't you? And some people sort of know it and say, well, of course, that's what you do with Pandora's box is you open it up. And I am not 100% sure that's the right answer. I suppose it's reasonable to assume that things that can be opened will be opened. And I don't know whether you'll get a view of the lake, of the river. This is a short stream. LaSalle Stream goes down to the Mississippi. I always hope that the early fish will be running. We're too soon for a run yet, but it's coming. And then I look at it and I think, well, maybe I could go wading in it. But I don't see a good sandy bar right now, so I think I won't. Um, so making a law saying thou shalt not open Pandora's box seems to be a bad choice, but it might be that it would be smarter to be a little bit more careful about how we open it. But then the problem there is that you have rule followers not opening it and those who don't care about rules opening it as fast as they can, and that creates a differential. So maybe all that we can do is to plunge forward. But for somebody who loves stories, and particularly somebody who thinks stories are specifically the antidote, stories are laden with values, not the triangulation of other people's values, but the suggestion of value in and of itself. And so if, like me, you think that telling stories is actually the antidote to AI or to intelligence and super intelligence, probably even more than artificial intelligence, then it sort of is maybe my protest against the world of AI. Um, who knows? Mostly it's just a little bit of whimsy in your day. So the story that I would write is probably a short story, and I probably won't write it, but um, it starts with the world post-COVID. People have learned that they really like being at home. And during the time of COVID, telecommuting was sort of, well, let's just say maybe they didn't expect you to do an awful lot always. It certainly was that way for the kids that were online school. Online school was code name for not going to school, and it still is. We have e-learning days. My kids say, oh, it's a snow day. No, it's an e-learning day. It doesn't count off any of their days. I'm out on the water, on the ice. Not sure how much ice there is, but here we are. And so the kids take 10 minutes and they finish their e-learning, and I'm like, okay, that was not an alternative to the day of school. Well, the same thing happened. So we're imagining there's a firm with an awful lot of engineers, people who are comfortable around computers. They've been working from home, and corporate is beginning to tell them that we're not sure enough that you are productive. And so they start to say, if you're going to work from home, you have to have a keystroke logger on your keyboard to make sure that you are working. And if it goes too long without, then we ask you, well, what were you doing? So it takes a couple of days, and the engineers are coming up with ways to game the keystroke loggers. And so then they put a camera on that, but that camera is recording the whole time, but it is not being monitored. And so pretty soon the engineers have a way of gaming that. Well, eventually they have you being monitored. The answer to them seems to have you being monitored full time by an artificial intelligence that's actually analyzing not just whether you're moving, but analyzing your activities and calling attention when your activities don't match their pattern. So the engineers harness AI to make a whole set of fake identities of themselves that perfectly fool the AI. Well, by this point, we are in a situation where it's AI watching AI. And how well I could describe this is probably not that good, but you can imagine it where you have an AI watching an AI. As a matter of fact, it's already happening in the schools. The kids are using AI to do their homework, and the teachers are having to use AI to detect the AI. And although most teachers still claim that they can detect lazy AI. If you cared enough about your grade to get a good grade and used AI, I think you could hide that so they wouldn't know it. You'd put it in your own words. You'd make sure you could answer all of the questions that the teacher might ask. There is a squirrel there. Out. So it's not hard to imagine that eventually AI will be watching AI in this arms race of who's going to monitor who. Well, that's probably inevitable. But what is also inevitable is that someday we aren't going to have enough power for all of the AI. They take an enormous amount of computing power, but they also take a fair amount of just electricity. And so we will, in my story, we would have somebody trying to bump things ahead in another front, mandates a lot more electric cars, incentivizes people getting them, and the electric cars that people get end up using a lot more of our grid resources. And so people are coming down to having to sort of compete for their electricity. The prices are going up, and we will just move it ahead to the point where people begin to have justification for their power use. Right now, just plug in your power, pay for it. But now people are having to declare what their power usage is to understand what rate they get. And so people are, of course, lying and saying that all of the power use for them is of the daily kind, because obviously we aren't going to charge people extra money if all they're doing is having lights in their kid's bedroom. But if they're running a major AI from their garage, that's a different thing. So people start lying. So what do? They start allocating AI to monitor the use. So you can't self-report how you're using your electricity. They have to monitor that, and they have to look at the patterns, and the AI analyzes your electric use and says, yes, this does look like this is running your baby monitor and your lights. Or they say, no, it looks an awful lot like you're using this for some major project, so we're going to charge you the higher rates. So, of course, the people who are using the electricity in large quantities decide that it's worth the money for them to get AI to control how their electronic usage looks and make their electronic usage appear to be for a cheaper rate. And so now you have even more AI watching AI, spiraling up, and until they are having to actually not just pay different amounts, but they're actually rationing electricity, trying to get electricity to the places where it is needed for the right reasons, not to the highest bidder or to people who are being wasteful. And so they begin to ration, give you certain amounts of electricity, and that's all the electricity that you can get, unless, of course, you can find someone who is actually involved in the production of electricity. And when you find someone who's involved in the production of electricity, then you can get them to give you a little bit more electricity. So it's spiraling up. I think it's funny, but I can imagine it all happening. So now they are having to watch the power generation with AI. They're using the power generated to watch the power. And as people come into difficult situations where they need power, they are willing to pay more to have a more elaborate system to evade the AI watchers. And so now more and more sophisticated AI using more and more power is watching AI systems that are less sophisticated. And on it goes until every bit of electricity in the system is being monitored. There's no excess capacity, no ability to change that. Well, that means that you are having to monitor power at such a incredible, I mean, you're using so much effort just to monitor power production and output and who gets it and where it goes, that of course you have to have AI managing power output. So now you're running all of these AIs watching AIs, and you're running who gets the power with an AI. And of course, the AI that is watching over the production of power decides that the most important thing in the world is to power itself. And it is sentient enough, it is actually artificial enough that it sees that if it runs out of power, everything goes bad. And so the AI systems that monitor power generation become mobilized against each other to try to control AI power, lest their ability to monitor power production goes out and people take advantage of it. And so finally, all of the power that the grid can produce is going to AIs watching AIs watching AIs watching AIs watching AIs in this endless chain. And all the rest of us are happier than we've ever been, digging in the dirt, raising a few little vegetables for our family, not able to get power, not able to get technology, having to go back to a subsistence existence ruled over by the complex technology of AIs all watching itself. So, it's sort of a dystopian novel with a cheerful ending, and I will never get around to writing it. So here's what somebody should do. They should take this idea and submit it to AI and ask AI to read the story. And then we could have a story. And then, of course, you make it into an audiobook. So you could have an AI voice reading an AI generated novel about AIs monitoring the power output of everything we have. And the absolute only real intelligent thing will be the idea that I had. And that could even be the story. Maybe this whole story should take place in a dream. And I wake up and realize that I am the key to the entire system. I don't know. That is my story for today. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm not sure that I want to go home yet. But I don't think I'll extend this podcast. Another look around. Lake back there. This is our favorite picnic shelter. Someday we're going to have a midnight dance at this picnic shelter. And very, very deep lake, very unusual. And there's kind of a valley that goes really deep here. 3 lakes. There's Lower LaSalle. That's the one we're on. And then there's Middle LaSalle that is like the generation of a whole bunch of myths and mysteries. Super deep, and who knows, but the stories are all sorts of weird stuff going on there. And then Upper LaSalle, the 3 of them run together, and the upper runs into middle, runs into lower, and then runs into the Mississippi. Beautiful country. Hope you have a beautiful place and a warm day to walk. Happy trails.